This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. The 2017 draft was such a missed opportunity that we don't talk about enough, because a lot of it is wrapped up in, you got Myles Garrett, but you had so many other great picks that you could have gotten the foundation for success for your franchise for years to come. But instead you ended with a very good player. And look, most drafts, you don't even get that. In most Browns drafts, we don't even get that. But what could have been, I think, is one of the most underrated things that we never talk about with the 2017 draft. So let's talk about that, and let's do a redraft of the 2017 draft. Now, if you watch my video prior to this, if you have not, I'll explain what I'm trying to do here. I am acting as if I am going back in a time machine with everything I know, and I'm the only one who knows what I know, and I'm drafting for the Browns. So everybody else is going to draft whoever they draft. We're not even focusing on what everybody else is doing, but I'm going to talk about picks that could have realistically happened with the Browns if we had 100% hindsight back into 2017 as an interesting concept. So in 2017, obviously the first pick of that draft was always gonna be Myles Garrett. If you go back in the time machine, that's the guy you pick number one overall. You don't change anything. Myles Garrett is the first pick. Now, when it comes to the 12th pick of that draft, I'm gonna select Deshaun Watson instead of trading to get Jabril Peppers and David Njoku. Now, the reason I want to get Deshaun Watson is very obvious. Patrick Mahomes is already taken in this kind of a scenario, because the Chiefs would have 100% took Pat Mahomes where they got him, but Deshaun Watson will be fine there. You get your quarterback of the future, you get Myles Garrett, and then the next thing I'm doing is I'm trading picks 33, 108, and 181 to move up to spot 29 and get TJ Watt. So just imagine that, Browns fans. Myles Garrett on one side, TJ Watt on the other side, and then your quarterback is Deshaun Watson. You have gotten the base for the next dynasty in sports, and definitely the base for one of the best defenses in the NFL if you add the right pieces. And since hindsight is 2020 in this redraft, the pieces are going to come together, because the next guy I'm going to select with the 52nd pick in the draft is Cooper Kupp, who went late in this draft. A lot of people forget. Now, the original selection here was DeShone Kizer. Yuck. I think he was actually picked at 36, but Cooper Kupp here. Now we move down to 145, where the Browns would take a tight end, a guy from Iowa with the name of George Kittle, who would be pretty good. So already we're talking about TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Deshaun Watson, Cooper Kupp, George Kittle, with pick 175, and at 185, you get Aaron Jones. 188, you get Chuck Clark. And just how different would the Browns' fortunes have been? So 2017, you still have Joe Thomas on that roster. I believe Isaiah Crowell is still on the team as the running back. You don't have a very defined running back situation at all. Offensive line is defense was terrible, but now you're adding Myles Garrett. Now you're adding TJ Watt. You add Deshaun Watson. The question is, and the question has always been with any redraft, if the Browns took X quarterback, would he develop into what he has always been? And I think that premise that, if the Browns would have took this guy, he wouldn't have been good, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. As in, I think we only believe that because we've only seen players get taken here and not be good, because we haven't taken good players at those positions. I don't think it's true at all. I think if the Browns would have drafted Lamar Jackson, he would have been an MVP. If they would have drafted Josh Allen, he would be Josh Allen. If they would have drafted Deshaun Watson, he would have turned into Deshaun Watson. And if they would have drafted Patrick Mahomes, he would have became Patrick Mahomes. You don't reach this level of greatness in the NFL without some innate ability being there, some adaptability. I think a quarterback who failed because like they were in a bad situation, they were going to fail if they were in a good situation. Baker Mayfield is a great example. He was put in a good situation. Like he got drafted in 2018. They brought in Jarvis Landry. They had a pretty good offensive line that year. He had a good rookie year. The second year, they added Odell Beckham. That didn't end up working out. They put even more around him. And even as much as they surrounded him with, he couldn't be better than what they wanted him to be because he just wasn't. At quarterback, I think for every other position in the NFL, there is some truth to your situation matters to where you're drafted to and your level of success. In the NFL, I don't think it matters with quarterbacks. I think either you have somebody who can ball or you don't. Deshaun Watson got drafted to Bill O'Brien, and he still ended up being Deshaun Watson. Pat Mahomes, we don't know because he got drafted to Andy Reid, and that was a good situation. But I have a hard time believing Pat Mahomes just ends up being a bum because he was drafted to the wrong team, given how tremendous his skill set is. And given that he succeeded under Cliff Kingsbury, who I think is a horrible coach at Texas Tech. So I don't ever buy into this idea that, oh, Hugh Jackson, would he have done anything with this? I don't know how many games Hugh Jackson wins with these guys because, again, these names sound great now because these dudes are in the prime of their career. But in 2017, Myles Garrett played 6 games. TJ Watt is not TJ Watt yet. Deshaun Watson only played 6 games his rookie year. Cooper Kupp wasn't Cooper Kupp. George Kittle wasn't George Kittle. Kenny Galladay wasn't Kenny Galladay. Aaron Jones wasn't Aaron Jones. Chuck Clark. So even if you would have hit home runs across the board in this draft, it would have taken a while before you saw the fruits of your labor show up because this team and these young players won't be ready to be themselves, their peak selves, for another 3-4 years. So I think even if they would have did this well in the 2017 draft, the realistic possibility is that they still have the first pick in the 2018 draft because, again, these are great prospects, but at this point in their career, they are prospects. They are not star players yet. They will become star players, but they are not that yet. But just imagine what this team could be if 2017 was handled a little bit differently. If we weren't so obsessed with trading back and being smarter than everybody at the quarterback position, I think that this team could have been in a much different direction. Now, I think you kind of split the difference in reality with David Njoku and Jabril Peppers. Like, that's not the worst timeline. That's not the worst timeline. But it's not a better timeline. It's kind of the medium timeline. Because those 3 are decent NFL players. It's not the worst first-round picks in Browns history at all. They're fine. But you really could have gotten, I mean, even if you just stick with the picks that you had there and you get Myles Garrett and Deshaun Watson, you'd be great. Now, a question is being asked of like, hey, would Hugh Jackson be the coach still in that situation? I don't think so. Because it goes back to what I said earlier. Yes. Would this team be better in the long run if they would have hit that well in these drafts? Yes. But none of these players had an extended, excellent first year that would have changed the fortunes of this team. Right? So this team would have still stunk under Hugh Jackson. And they probably would have stunk for most of the next year under Hugh Jackson. And also Hugh Jackson would have probably made some bad decisions on who starts and who doesn't, right? I don't imagine Hugh Jackson is coming out the gate and starting TJ Watt. I don't imagine out the gate he's going to start Aaron Jones or George Kittle or Cooper Kupp. Like, I imagine that it's going to take a while for these guys to play, which is fine because that would still get Hugh Jackson fired. But that's the 2017 redraft. Let's talk about the 2018 redraft.